Hi, I'm Rob Disman, and I'm the owner of your local Domino's Slippery Rock. I started out with Domino's as a delivery driver when I was in college, ended up really liking the job, worked my way up through management to the supervisor. I did that for about 10 years. My family, we decided that we couldn't really go any further with that, so we decided to go ahead and become a franchisee with Domino's. I'm lucky enough to have enough community support that most customers have become more than just customers, they're more like friends. It's been a pleasure to be a part of this community for 20 years, and I look forward to many more years.
Welcome back to Real Reviews from The Rock. I'm Aaron.
I'm James.
And today we're watching another classic movie. James, what movie are we watching?
Watching 1902's A Trip to the Moon, first movie ever, also first science fiction movie ever. I guess that's the same thing.
Wow.
Yeah, you want to tell the audience what it's about?
Yeah, sure. So basically the movie is about a group of scientists who want to go to the moon, so they have to build a complex contraption to launch themselves there, and then once they land, they kind of meet a weird race of moon people. Yeah. And they have to escape the moon.
Yeah. And pretty much it.
Yeah, so
there's the movie, folks. You don't have to watch it. That's it.
So this movie's pretty short, right?
13 minutes long, actually, which, imagine in 1902, there were some short films from the late 1890s, but they were like 2 minutes long, maybe at max. So 13 minutes in 1902, I mean, they were needing a stretch at the end.
It was quite a long time.
Yes.
But this is a movie with an actual plot, whereas those shorter movies didn't really have one, right?
Yeah, it's known as the first film with continuity, which I guess, isn't that crazy, because again, we're talking, at this point, maybe there's been like 10 movies out, but don't quote me. And but no, I mean, first continuity, especially they reference the shot of when the ship, or whatever you want to call it, hits the moon, and then transitioning over to when they get out. I mean, it's the first shot, instead of just going from cut to cut, where you're going from one space to a completely different location. So first film with continuity.
All right, cool. And I know that it was received rather well at the time, being the first movie, and even today it has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is a no easy feat. But
yeah, I mean, I couldn't even name other films that have 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, because, as you said, it's not easy. It's a gold standard.
A lot of 90s, not a lot of hundreds.
Yeah.
But I think without further ado, we should get into the movie.
Yeah, I agree. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Rob Disman, and I'm the owner of your local Domino's Slippery Rock. I started out with Domino's as a delivery driver when I was in college, ended up really liking the job, worked my way up through management to the supervisor. I did that for about 10 years. My family, we decided that we couldn't really go any further with that, so we decided to go ahead and become a franchisee with Domino's. I'm lucky enough to have enough community support that most customers have become more than just customers, they're more like friends. It's been a pleasure to be a part of this community for 20 years, and I look forward to many more years. Hi, I'm Rob Disman, and I'm the owner of your local Domino's Slippery Rock. I started out with Domino's as a delivery driver when I was in college. Ended up really liking the job. Worked my way up through management to the supervisor. I did that for about 10 years. My family, we decided that we couldn't really go any further with that, so we decided to go ahead and become a franchisee with Domino's. I'm lucky enough to have enough community support that most customers have become more than just customers, they're more like friends. It's been a pleasure to be a part of this community for 20 years, and I look forward to many more years.
All right, welcome back. James, what did you think of the movie?
It's actually a fun film. It's, as we said, real short. I think one of the things that I actually really enjoy is the the soundtrack, if you can really call it that for a 13-minute film. But the soundtrack of the film is kind of oddly soothing, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of calm.
Yeah, it's also like kind of a weird, eerie type of like music. I don't know how to explain it.
Mystery
Yeah,
to it, in a way.
Yeah, definitely. And it's actually just kind of thinking about that. When it first aired in Paris, it aired to a live orchestra played the music, and it was specifically written for the film.
Yeah.
So I mean, you imagine in 1902, they had to. This is maybe, and I don't know for sure, but I'd have to imagine it's close to being one of the first films that an orchestra wrote original scoring for.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I guess it makes sense for like the live orchestra to play it because the movie's really theatrical in just like with its sets and just the way it's filmed, kind of like the static camera angles and almost like you're watching a theater show. Yeah. So I thought the sets were really cool.
Yeah, I mean it does remind you of a stage production, just because I mean you can tell by looking at it. I mean these stages were big. Wooden made stages. I mean, it was very much like when you go to see a Broadway show or something like that. Yeah. And the costumes, you can imagine, it was filmed in black and white. It was hand painted to be in color. In fact, 200 studio workers painted the film to bring color, which I think is probably very special that they did because their costumes are so vibrant in different colors, and especially when they get to the moon, and there's all that flora and whatnot on the surface of the moon. It's all just bright, color, well, as bright as it can be for a 20-year-old movie, but very bright and colorful.
So now you're saying it was one of the first movies, and it's also like the first science fiction movie, which to me seems more difficult, like they were kind of shooting themselves in the foot, because I feel like a lot of movies now, if they're science fiction, those are like big budget, like you can't just do like a small, like you can, but you know what I mean? So budget-wise, was this movie like super expensive? Well,
surprisingly, in 1902, it cost $10,000 to make this movie.
Okay.
And a lot of that money went into the costumes. They had to make all these costumes for the film, and went into the sets. Which is, you think today that budget is like probably 10 times that amount for costumes. But that's where the majority of the money actually went. So it was $10,000 in 1902, which comes out to about $69,000 today. And then you think $69,000 today to do a movie, you're not doing a movie for $69,000. I mean,
no.
Even George Lucas's American Graffiti, which literally just takes place inside of kids driving these convertibles, cost under $1 million to make.
Yeah, well, maybe if the movie was 10 minutes long, it would have been less of a budget.
Yeah. But I mean, still, 13 minutes then, you have to imagine that was the first film to even hit that long of
it was what, like triple, quadruple the length of
Yeah. So in the late 1890s, you had short little like 2-minute reels of a train going by or horses, running together. But this was 13. Those were like 2 minutes maybe max.
Yeah.
This was 13 minutes, and then you have to take into account. Yeah, the movie was 13 minutes long, but the time that it probably took, and I don't have a estimate for you, but the time it took 200 people to paint cell by cell by cell. You're talking, film reel, this wide, you really have to be taking your time and be precise painting those cells. So, that I'm sure took the most time for the film.
Yeah, it seems out. I didn't even know that they like hand painted film cells back. Was that normal or?
Yeah. I mean, today everything's done digitally.
Well, yeah.
And it's actually kind of funny. I mean, to painting film cells, you went from painting film cells for these movies to in the 70s, you had actors and directors like Jimmy Stewart, went before Congress and actually rallied against colorizing black and white films because it went against it took away from the film itself. It took away from the visuals. So we went from painting film cells, we had tons of black and white classics to then actors saying, we don't want these films colorized, which Ted Turner and his company were really big behind colorizing old films.
Yeah.
In fact, like It's a Wonderful Life, that was colorized later on.
Yeah, I actually watched the colorized version of that.
Yeah, which that is not the version that usually gets shown on TV each year. Usually you watch the black and white version. And just, talking about the film itself, like the film reel itself, for the special effects, which for 1902, I mean, it's pretty spectacular. It's a lot of art.
A lot of, there's whenever they hit the people, like they vanish in a big puff of smoke.
Yeah.
It's very, very magical kind of.
Yeah, and that and all the matte paintings. And, I don't know if you know what matte paintings are, but a lot of films in the from the 50s on would use these, paintings that were shot from a perspective to make it look like scenery in the background.
Right.
In Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, most of Hoth is all matte paintings.
Gotcha, like a big backdrop kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, even when they're showing the device that they fire up at the moon with, that's
Mm-hmm.
all matte painting, to give that perspective of, that thing is actually like tilted up into the sky.
Yeah. I really like the art
cool.
style kind of the movie. It's very, it's a set design, but it's very like cartoony almost, just like whimsical, fun kind of, like the giant cannon that shoots them out is like this big, long Dr. Seuss looking thing that just shoots them out of a bullet.
Yeah, and that's what it looks like. It looks like a giant gun, and that even their ship that they're in kind of does resemble a bullet.
Yeah.
When they get to the moon, it's funny you said it kind of reminds you of cartoony because, layered cell animation, and Disney did that for a lot of their films where, the camera would pan in and it would seem almost like you were like in 3D going past trees and bushes. That really is what it reminded me of when they hit the moon with all of the trees and the giant mushrooms.
Yeah.
The way they have the set layered really reminded me of layered animation style.
Gives you some weird depth kind of to it.
Yeah. Which, helps the film, makes it look like they're on the vast, surface of the moon, even though, you're looking at the moon from afar at the beginning of the movie, and you're just like, well, there's no way possibly that there's all this plant life on the surface.
So something a bit, I know that the movie at one point it was kind of like lost almost. It took a while for the entire movie to kind of come.
Yeah, a couple prints were found over 100 years. And actually in 2002, and this is amazing, the most complete print of the film was found in a barn in France.
And it wasn't like decayed or destroyed.
No, it was in good shape. It was in good shape, and they were able to use parts that weren't previously available of the film, because prints before that they weren't complete prints of the film. So they were able to use parts of that print to fill in gaps that weren't previously available, and then they digitized the film for a release.
Because I know a lot of the versions of the movie that were kind of saved, like originally, kind of were missing either the beginning or like the ending sequence. But
and there's a scene towards the beginning where they're all having like this conference, like this meeting about going to the moon.
Yeah, and he draws just a chalk line from the Earth to the moon.
Yeah, and parts of that scene were actually missing from earlier prints.
Oh, okay.
So it would kind of have like these rough jump shots for that scene, but now you have like a full, smooth transition throughout that entire scene until they get into that giant gun-shaped launcher.
And I know it wasn't until kind of recently, right, that the colored version was restored and available.
Yeah. So digitally they went in and they restored a lot of the colored scenes for the prints, which I think, I'd like to watch both versions, honestly, even if it is a little degraded, because I mean, you think about all the hours that went into colorizing that film, which I think is probably what was the basis of in the 70s with all those actors railing against colorizing film. I mean, you really had somebody put a lot of work into it, and then it's just like, well, now you've just negated that work by digitizing.
And I like a lot of the colors, at least in this one. I mean, it's kind of choppy just because it was all painted and then restored.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're really like bold, and they kind of give a weird, like whimsical nature to a lot of the scenes.
Well, and I think some of it, we kind of lost some of that when they recolorized it, because for the parts that were missing and the colors that were missing, they kind of had to just guess and put a color in that would match what was available. So we do kind of not get that full experience that audiences got in 1902. And I just want to add, if that's okay, the director, George Méliès, but he thought this was going to make him a lot of money when he brought it to America.
Yeah.
But actually, it had been copied. A print from Europe had been copied and released.
Oh, just pirated and kind of spread around.
I mean, the earliest form of piracy, and he made no money from any of the viewings in America. So
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, because it was such a success. Yeah, it probably would have been very profitable for him.
Yeah.
For the special effects, today you'll film a scene. We talked about this in our first episode where, like on Game of Thrones, Emilia Clarke has to interact with these giant green poles for her dragons.
Right.
But in 1902, they did the splice technique, which, they would film, you would stop filming, you'd alter it on screen, and then you'd go back to filming again.
Right, and then you just physically cut out that section and then tape it together.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, and that's something even movie theaters kind of had to do every now and then when we showed 35 millimeter prints.
Right.
If you had an issue with where the reel itself broke, you'd have to go in, and projectionists would have to know how to put those cells back together, or put them together as best as possible to keep that film going for the rest of the movie.
Sounds hard.
Well, yeah. I mean, it definitely was an art in itself, both in film production, even with this 1902 film, and as the years went on, for theater employees. I mean, it was an art. I mean, it was kind of a special thing to hold and interact with that, especially within the last decade, that dying form of film print. So,
well, I'm really glad that at least it was saved in its entirety over 120 years later, so then we can watch it. I think that's pretty wild that something that old that was almost completely lost to time we can now just go on YouTube and watch. Any other facts or anything fun before we wrap it up?
I just wanted to say, it's funny you say that, because when I watched it, I can't help but sit there and think, the people who were in the film, and actually the director was in the film. He's like one of the main professors. But these actors who acted in this film would have no idea, probably couldn't even have put together in their mind that this film would be shown 100 years after its production. Especially in 1902, something was shown once, and that was it. There was no reproductions. There was no, home videos. Nothing. Even TV. I mean, TV. If there was a special on TV, it was shown one time, and that was it. There was no replays. So it just blows my mind to kind of sit there and think, like, these individuals just had no idea that 120 years later, that people would be watching this film and enjoying this art I just wanted to bring that up because I just think it's special to think about.
Yeah, and then we get to talk about it.
And then we get to talk about it, and then you listen to me drone on.
Yes.
So, yeah, no, it was a good choice.
Yeah, I really liked it, even though it was short. I think it was good.
Oh yeah, I don't think you need to sit through a 2-hour movie sometimes to get the effect of a film.
Yeah.
Films can be, 20 minutes long, 13 minutes long, 10 minutes long, and as long as the story is compelling and the point of the film is tangible enough that you can, that it sucks you in, that you're invested, it's still just as good and just as special.
I agree. Well, I guess that probably about wraps it up. Be sure to join us next week for probably a longer film, but
we'll see.
Another classic.
Hi, I'm Rob Disman, and I'm the owner of your local Domino's Slippery Rock. I started out with Domino's as a delivery driver when I was in college. Ended up really liking the job. Worked my way up through management to the supervisor. I did that for about 10 years. My family, we decided that we couldn't really go any further with that, so we decided to go ahead and become a franchisee with Domino's. I'm lucky enough to have enough community support that most customers have become more than just customers, they're more like friends. It's been a pleasure to be a part of this community for 20 years, and I look forward to many more years.